Hi, last week I asked you to leave questions, and you all left a lot of them, so I thought I'd answer half this week and half next week. So here we go. Mimyun Life asked if I'm a morning person or an evening person. Well, I'm not a morning person, but I've learned to be a morning person. Initially, it was always hard for me to even get up on time. And then when I became a teacher, I had to learn to get up on time. And then when I started writing, I would get up and write before school. So I'd write from, say, 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. So then I really became a morning person. But no, I would never consider myself a morning person. I do tend to like to kind of stay up late at night reading or whatever. And so I guess I'm both, whatever I need to be. Barbara wants to know, what's a skill I have that would be helpful in a cataclysmic event? Now that's a good question. I don't think I have any. But then my husband said, well, you can sew and that would come in handy. So maybe, yeah, he's probably right about that. Also, I can play the piano. So music, I think we're going to miss music a lot. So that would be really helpful. Well, not helpful as in a fetus sense, but, you know, we would be dying for entertainment, so maybe. And then lastly, I think storytelling could be, you know, important in a what I call a post-techno world, because we're used to being entertained, and so we wouldn't be able to print them. Maybe we'd become oral storytellers again. I'm not sure. Okay, Laura wants to know, what would I miss most in natural disaster? Well, I would miss my AC because I live in Texas and it's very hot. And I thought about that a lot as I wrote this book. You'll read scenes where, for instance, Shelby's in her house and she's afraid to open the windows, but it's sweltering hot. But we've all grown used to locking the doors and windows. So how do you adjust? How do you make that change? AC would be something I missed a lot. I would miss Google a lot because whenever I have a question, I Google it. I'm so dependent on Google. That sounds silly, but I would miss it a lot. Music would probably be the biggest thing. I do listen to a lot of music, so not being able to do that, yeah, that would be a difficult adjustment. Fishing Jan wants to know if I ever suffer burnout, and the answer to that is close. I try not to actually get to the burnout point, so if I start feeling like stressed and racy and short with my dear husband or my dogs or my kids, then I go, whoa, that's just too much pressure. You need to back away. So I tend to like take a little time off, you know, take walks, just force myself to decompress a little bit. And I do schedule in weeks off. So even though I write 4 books a year, I make sure that I have some weeks for vacation. So that helps too. Yeah, burnout's a big problem with every job. Betty wants to know, have I ever made a quilt and did I start with something small like a baby quilt? I started smaller than a baby quilt. I probably started with wall hangings. You can see the one on the wall behind me. And then I'll show you what I'm doing right now. This is just a little wall hanging, and I like that too. I've made a couple twin-sized, but I haven't really worked up to a full-size quilt yet. But hopefully someday I'll get there. I do love to quilt. I just love it. Okay, a couple more. Francis and Judith both want to know, where do I get my ideas? I steal them from all over the place. News stories, a lot. Deep Shadows started with a news story my husband sent me about a NASA report to Congress. And I just took it from there and kind of followed the what if it did happen. And also from my friends. I get a lot of my characters from my friends. So for instance, Shelby Sparks is a really, really close friend of mine. Her name is not Shelby. but she looks the same and she acts the same and she has a very can-do attitude. When we're hiking, we call her the doc, because she has everything in her backpack that you could possibly need. So so just the personality, I stole it from her completely, and that's why I thanked her in my introduction. Good questions. Let's see. Cheryl wants to know who or what inspired me to be a writer. In one blog recently, I said my grandmother, because she was a published writer of home economics books. That's certainly true. My father loved to write. He loved words. He loved playing with words, and so probably some of that came from him. And then honestly, my first inspiration was just that I was poor and hungry, and I thought there has to be a way that I could make a little extra money other than I was in school to be a teacher. And so that's how I started writing articles, and then eventually that led to writing books. So yeah, out of my poverty came a passion I didn't realize I had. I always knew I loved to read, but I didn't know that I wanted to write until probably 16 years ago. All right, a couple more. Cheryl also wanted to know, have you ever based a character on someone you know? Yes, I mentioned Shelby. Also, in the books that start with Murder Simply Brewed, the man Tate, he's totally my husband, completely. So if you want to know what my husband is like, go read those books. Cheryl wants to know if I read reviews on my books, and I do. And I know a lot of authors don't. I understand why they don't. But here's why I do. If I see something pop up over and over again, like say people didn't like the endings, if one person said that, I would ignore it. But if I start seeing it multiple times, then I start rethinking my endings and what is it about that isn't satisfying. Now I haven't had that, so that's good. But it does help for me to see what people like or don't like, and not necessarily change or adjust, but just to know and be aware of it and keep that in the back of my mind. I don't take it personal at all. And then Cheryl's last question was, do you write full-time or part-time? I wrote part-time when I started. I was teaching full-time. I would get up and write before school, and then I'd go teach all day, and then I'd come home, do family stuff, and write at night. And that was pretty difficult, but by then I had a passion, and I felt called to tell those stories about faithful living in God's grace and being in community with each other. Then eventually, after my first book, I had quite a few contracts, and I thought, I need to make a decision because 2 jobs is too many. It's one too many. And so I opted to stop teaching, and I do miss it, and write full-time. And I've been doing that, I think, 5 years now. So it's been awesome. Okay, I will have more questions next week. If you didn't get to leave one and you want to, please do. If you've already left a message, then I'll answer it for you next week. And thanks for stopping by. Be sure and leave a comment because I'll draw another winner. Okay, thanks. Bye.